So I don't have a prepared talk for you. I'll be back, like he said, August 7th, but there were authors here, and as you might have found out through Diana's talk, that we've worked together on her book. And so I wanted to give everybody an opportunity here to talk about publishing. Who has ever thought about writing a book? Raise your hand. Anybody? Yes? Okay. So quite a few people in the room. And then also I think it's really important to talk about storytelling with people. This is what I do. I travel around and talk about the importance of storytelling, because even if you've never considered writing a book, I think it matters to realize that your story matters, right? That your story is important, that telling our stories creates connection, it promotes inclusivity, and it's how we solve a lot of the world's problems. So I just wanted to come up and give you an opportunity to, if you've ever had any questions about publishing, and then also I have a course for potential authors coming up that I have some information about, but I wanted to give Diana an opportunity to talk about her experience with writing her book and how she kind of struggled to realize that her story really matters and, you know, the power that it would have.
Right, so I started my writing in 2007, and I just was like, what am I doing? But I just felt this urge to get it out. So I just would write every single day. I had one before, you know, it was before they even had these voice notes, right, on phones. I had a little recorder that I would be driving in the car and I would record. Running, where's Matt? Running, I'm kind of like an ex-runner. You carry yours, right? Mm-hmm. So I would run, and I did have my best thoughts. In fact, when I ran, that was when I got the inspiration in my shoes idea. And so writing was just, I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And honestly, I put it down because I was like, who is going to read this book? Why am I doing it? Who cares about my story? You know, this is really kind of stupid is what I said, mm-hmm. right? And then I also realized I was saying things in my book. You guys heard me, I have 5 older sisters and a brother who I didn't mention took his life, which was really challenging for me. And the fact that we had an argument the day before he committed suicide that a lot of people didn't know. I'm like telling all of this in my story, but I felt so compelled to share the truth. Because people would see me now and they would go, you know, she seems like she just has it all together. But when really people, as she said, as Amanda said, when you really share your heart and not sit there and try and fake it, people connect with you. Mm-hmm. And what I realized was I wanted to connect with the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old Diana. And that 14, 15-year-old Diana wouldn't connect to a perfectly put together attorney who lives in the suburbs, got a white husband, kids, running, you know what I mean? It's just, I'm telling you what the real deal is. And so, you know, it just connecting with these young girls and having them go, what? You went through that, Mrs. Patton? That's key. But I'm telling you, I put it down, 2014, I did this TEDx talk, which I kind of was like, this is my worst talk ever. And then I thought, I can't do this, but I felt God pulling me to write this book. And I was the VP, the Toledo Fair Housing Center CEO, sitting right here, Michael Marsh, and I worked with him. And I was the VP, COO, General Counsel, kids doing everything, and I mean, sports out of the, you know what, my daughter doing sports, I just would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, at games. You want to get something done? You get it done. Mm-hmm. So when people say, I don't have enough time, bull crap. You want to get it done, you find time to get it done. Then I had to realize I got to a certain point where I go, I don't know how to finish this. Mm-hmm. And I was on a search. I prayed to God. I put it in my journal. God, help me find someone to help me finish my book. And I went back to my memories, and I found my school. I went to Institute of Integrative Nutrition, found this in New York, and then I found that there was this program going on that this person was involved with, and Amanda, and I just called them, and I submitted my manuscript. And she called me back. 2 days later.
Why wouldn't you, right?
And
You
so-
heard her talk, right?
So then I was like, oh my gosh, really? And it was like off to the races. But it was really hard because she took my manuscript, we met, and then, you know, she's kind of like going through it, and she said, there's some missing pieces in my story. It's the stuff I don't know if I could get through. See, what you don't know about Amanda, she's a social worker. See how God put it together? Like, I needed someone like her to really understand me. And she gets inside of your heart, and she starts to pull out the stuff that you probably don't want to talk about but if you're really interested in making a book that's impactful and powerful, then you will do that work. So I just have nothing but praises for Amanda. It was a process. I mean, it was a process. And I cried a lot. I pushed past I had to find the beauty in my story during that time. And it has completely altered everything. So then I said, who's going to read it? Remember, I was like going, and I was like, I don't even know who's going to read this book. But then I thought, but what if it's just for my grandkids? What if it's just for my kids? What if it, even though, to be honest with you, my kids haven't read it. They're 19 and 15. But guess what? They'll read it when they're 30. They'll talk about it with their kids. Their grandkids, when I'm dead and gone, their great-great-grandkids will read this. Imagine the power in that. You know, I was just at the National Museum of African American History. Thank God some of those people wrote down their stories. We wouldn't be able to talk about it to this day, to realize the many heroes, slaves that were just itching to write just a little something, something, so I could read a little bit about our ancestors. So, I'd say.
Thanks. So I don't need to say anything else. But I just wanted to give Diana a chance to kind of give a testimonial to what it's like, because when I did meet Diana, she was very timid about whether her story mattered or what she could do with it. So a little bit of background about me. I did start out in social work. I started out as a therapist. I worked with mainly teenage girls, but all populations for many, many years. And the biggest thing I learned about people who are hurt or traumatized is that they don't feel heard. They don't feel understood. And it kind of brought me back to that time when I was a teenage girl and I didn't feel heard and I didn't feel understood. And then it clicked for me. That's when I discovered writing. That's when I discovered storytelling. And even if I wasn't telling a story about myself, I could channel whatever feelings I had into a piece of fiction to share and connect with other people. So I started to use that in my therapy with those girls. I started to teach them how to tell their stories, how to write, how to share their feelings and their thoughts and their struggles productively instead of destructively, which is what they normally did. And that changed things. I mean, it created healing in them that I really didn't even expect. It changed the way our organizations worked. So I knew even when I was working as a social worker and a therapist that I wanted to be a writer. So I went back to school. I went to Chicago to learn how to write professionally. And I got a degree in English literature and creative writing and started getting published. And I took to the world with this mission of storytelling. So for me, it's really more about helping people share stories, especially in today's day and age where we all need to connect a little bit more. So there's two different paths that I teach people to take, and one of them is specifically for fiction writers and creative writers to teach them how to become professional authors. And then the other path, the path that Diana and I took, is to teach you how to write a book that you can use to help create social change, or use as a business tool. So these are two entirely different tracks, but I combine them all in a class of 10 people that I take on once a year and teach them everything they need to know about the publishing world, and even if you've never written a word, about how to become a lucrative writer. The course is 4 months long. There's live lessons. I teach you all about what that path looks like, and I stick with you until I feel like you feel solid on your feet, right? So with Diana being here and with Matt being here and all of this talk about storytelling, Nate and I just thought it would be a good opportunity to come and kind of present this opportunity for you. So if you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask them, and that would be great. Or anything about publishing or storytelling. Yeah.
How long have you been publishing?
So for about 10 years, I started in Chicago. I worked at literary magazines first. I worked as an associate editor for a lot of different publishing houses and literary agents. And then when I came back to Pittsburgh about 5 years ago, my partner and I started our own publishing house. So we own an independent publishing house in Pittsburgh. It's called One Idea Press. Before that, I worked as editor-in-chief for another press, and that's when I met Diana during that time. So, you know, it's been a long road learning the ropes of everything so that I can help everybody follow the path that's right for them.
Some people wonder why self-publish or go traditional publishing. And I self-published, and so did Matt, right? Well, a lot has happened in the publishing world, and she will expand upon it in her course. I chose to self-publish because I had already done a lot of the research on publishing, and most publishers are in it to make money. Mm-hmm. And if you don't show that you're going to be able to make money for them, you know, I am not Oprah, so I don't have a huge following, but I have a story and I have a voice that I want to share. Mm-hmm. And so self-publishing, places like Amazon created this thing called Create Space. Ingram Sparks created Ingram Sparks. And then we have those companies that are saying, here's a pathway for you. But can I just share with you one of the biggest mistakes I believe self-publishers do? They do not take self-publishing individuals like me, because I'm an attorney, I'm a contracts lawyer, I've done civil rights work, I've been in the business world, I know how powerful writing is. I know how the business world works. So I knew that the same amount of excellence that I would do in my job, I had to apply to my book. So the cover had to be really, really good. It had to look like something that you would buy off of a shelf, you know? And it had to look like it would be something that, not like a self-published, because sometimes they just don't put a lot of money into the cover. Very important. And to look like it was a book that was, don't see errors on the first 2 pages. I see that a lot. People don't spend money on editing, and it's so bad. And that's what gives self-publishing a bad name. You need to spend the money on editing. Edit. Because I'm telling you, if I don't see my own errors. I don't know about you guys, but I don't always see my own errors when I'm typing. And so I just believe that you have to I went to Book Expo America just to kind of learn a little bit more, and they had a self-publishing track. Book Expo America is once a year where you can go there and just learn, but it doesn't do what Amanda does, and that's very hands-on. But I learned about self-publishing, and it all goes into, a lot of people just want to write a book, but then they don't think the process through. Negotiating the contracts, making certain that you are looking at the details of how much money you actually are going to make. The marketing on it. People don't do marketing well. You have to do that work. You are the marketer. So you have to have a marketing plan and so forth. So.
Well, also, the other thing that I talk about a lot too is how difficult it is to navigate the publishing industry. There are so many people in the world who want to write a book, who feel like they have a story, or that they know that they're a writer, but they have no idea what the next steps are. And even when they start to take those next steps, it becomes so overwhelming. And even when I got started working in publishing, it was super overwhelming. It took a really long time to understand exactly how to coach somebody down the right path to success. And there are so many roadblocks, especially with traditional publishing. You know, Diana's self-published, and that's one path. But the path to traditionally publishing, you know, publishing with one of the big 5 New York publishing houses is entirely different. And so I think that that's a question I come up against a lot too. So that's also something to consider, because there are all the possibilities in the world with both self-publishing and traditional publishing. But I always tell everybody that there's a difference between an editor and a book coach. And that is that a book coach is somebody with the expertise and knowledge to take you all the way from content creation and editing through the publication process, whether you're going to self-publish or traditionally publish. And I think that that's really valuable because a lot of people try to piecemeal that process, and you end up investing way too much money, you end up getting burnt out, and you also end up feeling really rejected and tired at the end of it. But you know, telling our stories shouldn't feel that way. We shouldn't feel overwhelmed and tired and rejected to share the things that we have to say. So that's really the purpose of this. That's really the purpose of these courses that I've created throughout the year, is to help people understand that there is a stress-free way to connect with other people through your writing, and that there is somewhere that you can go and do everything from beginning to end without just feeling completely overwhelmed. So, yeah. So yeah, I will stick around. You guys feel free, if you have any questions, feel free to approach me and ask. And thanks so much for listening to me.